What's going on, guys? Thanks for checking out another video. Yes, I'm not wearing a shirt because it is literally 96 degrees outside today, and it's even hotter in the garage. So it's going to be a miserable freaking day. Just got home from work, but the important thing is I got the clutch today, which means we can put the clutch in the transmission, put the transmission on the motor, and hopefully drop the motor into the car tonight. That would be ideal. Alright, so it's time to go ahead and take off the flywheel. So this might not be a big surprise to any of you, but I did cheap out on the clutch a little bit. I went with the XTD clutch, bought it on eBay, super cheap, got a lightweight flywheel, clutch disc, and pressure plate for, I believe, under $300. I know, that's ridiculous, it's way too cheap, probably too good to be true. You might be right, but there's a lot of really good reviews on this product, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. You know, worst case scenario, I replace the clutch after a couple months or something. But I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people that spent high dollar, including myself, on ACT clutches and competition clutches and that sort of thing, and had, you know, fins break off the pressure plate after a couple hundred miles, stupid stuff like that. You know, I've seen clutch discs explode and break in half from really good name brand clutches. So these guys had a lot of good reviews on eBay and off eBay, so I'm gonna go ahead and give them a try. Worst case scenario, thing breaks apart and freaking cuts my head off, comes flying through the firewall or something, but don't think that's gonna happen. Anyways, I got the torque specs, so I'm gonna put this on, and normally I'm not a huge torque freak, but I'm gonna make sure this is torque to spec using a torque wrench, and I'm just gonna get this thing put on here real nice. With a Sharpie, I just marked some numbers. I know they're hard to see, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is how I'm going to tighten these down. That might not be the most correct way, but I can't find the exact pattern, so I'm getting it as close as I can, which should be okay. As long as I torque it, I'm going to do a half torque, and then I'm going to do full torque. So I got to double check the torque, but I'm going to go ahead torque it to half that, and then go around, do the pattern again, torque it to the full spec. Alright, the clutch is installed, all the bolts are torqued down. I did 98 pounds on the flywheel, and I did 15 pounds on all these bolts. So I messed up the paint with the brake cleaner, didn't think that through. They used cheap paint because, I mean, let's be real, nobody sees your clutch. So I got brake cleaner on the paint, and it stripped the paint off, but not a big deal. Everything else looks pretty good, so should be able to slide the transmission on. I got to put the clutch fork and the pivot ball and the throwout bearing in, and I got the OEM Mitsubishi throwout bearing. Got everything ready to go. Got the pivot ball put in, just got to grease all the fittings. Put the clutch fork in. Should be ready to go. Guys, so it's the next day, and obviously the engine is in the car, and let me tell you, there's a lot of things that happened that sort of led to this point. So obviously, as you can tell, I skipped a lot of footage. So I went straight from putting the clutch in to the engines in the car, and the reason that was I got kind of frantic just trying to, I want to get the thing done and get it in the car last night, and I didn't want to have any setbacks, so I kind of stopped filming and just focused on getting it into the car. And I gotta be honest, it was actually pretty difficult to get it in with the transmission. And I had a leveler, so I literally had the engine sitting down like this, and it still would not go in. I did kind of get some damage, obviously, from the motor mounts. Sort of chipped up the paint in a couple areas. It's not terrible. Down here's the worst of it, but that's to be expected. You can see how bad it is in the back there. If I can focus on it. There we go. And I don't know, obviously it doesn't look the best, but I mean, I had to get you that close to see it. So what I'm going to do is, at some point, I'm just going to kind of put a piece of paper back here or something, sand that down with a scuff pad, and just take a touch-up gun and spray some paint right in that area. And as far as this goes, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just take a touch-up gun, maybe like, I don't know, mask off this area and just spray just a little bit of touch-up paint in there, sand that down a little bit. So I'm not too worried about it. But the engine's in, everything's connected besides the subframe. Pulled the subframe out so that I could get this thing to sit in right. But the back motor mount's connected. Both side motor mounts are connected. So it's in the car. It's not going anywhere. Now I just have to install a few more things. So I have a fuel pressure regulator on the way. Still have the fuel pump on the way. Still waiting on that. And as far as that goes, I mean, everything else, I'm just going to start plugging everything in. I'm going to replace all these coil wires. I'm going to take this off and paint it and put the new spark plug cover on. So it's just a lot of odd and end stuff, cleaning everything up, getting everything plugged in, and routing all the wires. And then, obviously, turbo. I have not decided what I'm doing with the turbo yet. I don't know if I'm going to roll with the stock turbo. That's why I took it off, because I bent an oil line. So I got a new oil line. So I'm like, okay, well, I already bought an oil line for the stock turbo, but do I still upgrade it? Do I not upgrade it? I'm sort of debating what I want to do here. So, not sure yet, but anyways, the hard part's done. It's in the car. I'm starting to find a lot of different things with this wire harness. Thing number one, put an X over that because that doesn't get used because I took out cruise control and that's what that gets bolted to. Obviously that goes to the MAF. And then this should go to the O2 sensor, but it doesn't because this O2 sensor is using a completely different socket here. So that won't work with this at all. So that's interesting enough. But here's the cam angle sensor. This is the big deal here. So the cam angle sensor on a 97 DSM is right here where this plug is. It's right here. And this would get plugged in right there. But since this is a 95, it's actually right here. So the fun part is we have to cut this connector off, use the factory harness, splice the wires in to run over with the plug and connect into that. When you do that, you got to swap the firing order and a few other things. But another difference is on, I thought all second gen DSMs, so I'm not sure exactly if, I don't think this is a first gen manifold because I think all the first gen manifolds were cyclones or whatever. I don't know, but normally there's a sensor here. I forget what it's called, but all it does is, it's for the EGR. All it is like it gets a vacuum reading, and I don't have that sensor at all, so this plug is useless. So yeah, some weird stuff going on. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with this O2 sensor plug. This is the correct plug, so I think I just have a strange O2 sensor there. I got to figure that out. And then I got to figure out how to get this to the starter. And I do know one thing's for certain. Unless I have no other choice, I am not pulling this wire harness out of this car again. So I'll cut, I'll splice, I'll do whatever I got to do, and I'll do it as neat and nice as I can. That way, you know, it's nothing like that piece of shit right there. We'll get there, and that should be it. But for now, probably by the next video, I'll have this cam angle sensor rewired over there. I'll have this tucked down and tucked away somewhere, and hopefully I'll figure out this oxygen sensor thing. I might just need to buy a new oxygen sensor that has a different plug. So I don't know. I really do not think that works with this connector here. It's a completely different thing. So I'm not sure, guys, but I'll get it figured out, like I said. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Before the video ends, I'm so stupid. I literally just found out what that plug goes to. So it's just different colored on mine. So obviously red and yellow is for starter. This, I just pulled this off the original 95 harness. This literally just plugs into here, and then the starter wires reach. So what I'm going to do is, because I have this rewired in here, I'm going to have to cut this heat shrink and rerun these wires again. But that works out anyway because I wanted them on the other side of the engine mount. But what I can do now is to get this power wire how I want it. I twisted this. I'm going to take a cutoff wheel and I'm going to cut off right along there. And then it'll just bolt through. Right there you can see where the bolt is. It'll just bolt through, connect on there, and hopefully make it around, once I get it on the other side of this mount, make it around to the back side of the starter. And I also figured out that this is a different O2 sensor, but I just found one that's a 4-wire plug, and it literally is the exact male version of this plug. So that's all that is. I just need a different O2 sensor. Problem solved. It's still going to be a while. It's still probably going to be a few weeks till this thing is turnkey. Like I said, I'm still waiting on some stuff, but it'll get there, and we'll get this figured out. We'll get there, and that should be it. But for now, probably by the next video, I'll have this cam angle sensor rewired over there. I'll have this tucked down and tucked away somewhere. I'll get it figured out, like I said. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.